What is going on, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be talking about how the cars from the 90s are coming back today. The 90s were considered the golden ages of Japanese sports cars. You got cars like the Miata, RX-7, NSX, 300Z, the 3000 GT, the Supra. I'm like, just the name of all these cars, the Skyline, like this was it for the Japanese sports cars. What made these cars so popular was they were compact and light, and they had a small engine that were either NA or naturally aspirated, or had turbocharged motors. It was so popular that even the American car companies started imitating them with cars like the Cobalt SS and the Dodge SRT4, also known as the Neon. People flocked to these Japanese cars because they were the best bang for your buck. It was a time where Japanese manufacturers were taking a lot of risk. You had your Mazda coming out with the RX-7, a rotary motor, Mitsubishi, who focused a lot on their all-wheel drive technology. We had Toyota, who came out with a mid-engine Japanese sports car. Like Ferrari, what? These cars were nicer versions of their smaller counterparts. You had stuff like the Impreza, which became an STI, the Lancer, which became the Evo, the Celica, which became the Supra. Like, if you didn't want to buy the big sporty version, you could have always bought the smaller version, just had it for the looks. Unlike buying the Camaro and Mustang, where that was the only option. Like, there was no small version of a Mustang or a cheaper version of a Mustang, like, unless you want to consider like a V6 or in some cases the inline 4. I think that's part of what grew the Japanese car culture more, was that you could buy a Civic or you could buy the Civic Type R. You couldn't afford the Type R or the SI, you could buy a normal Civic, fix it up, modify it, and you're good to go. I'm like, it's the same body. And then came a time where people stopped buying sporty cars, and SUVs became what is popular. After minivan craze, we started having SUVs and crossovers. That's kind of where we're at right now, where everything's being a crossover. The Eclipse came back as a crossover. Sure, some cars stayed, like the Civic, the Evo stuck around a little bit, the STI's still around, Miata's still around, but some of these other like classic legendary 90s cars kind of just went away. But recently we've seen a comeback of these cars. The Supra's back, the NSX is back, the 400Z is coming out. But some of you might be like, but the Supra is not a Supra. It's a Supra. It's an inline 6. It's got very, very similar things to what a Supra can do. Even the way the motor is built, you could throw so much more power in that stock motor. Like, that's what made the Supra popular. Sure, they might have teamed up with BMW to make it. It's BMW motor, BMW transmission, all that. But you have to remember that they're not planning on selling the Supra like the Camry and the Corolla, where they're going to sell enormous numbers of it. They know that's going to be a smaller market. Not as many people are going to buy it. So guess what? If you team up with another company to develop a car, it saves you money down the road as well. I believe also part of the reason why Toyota wanted to bring out the Supra again is because sports cars bring attraction to the car company. Supra came out, people are all of a sudden like, oh, look at Toyota over there, look what they're doing. Now you could get the TRD Camry, you could get almost every SUV and truck in their lineup in the TRD version as well. You're also bringing in new customers. You have your Boxster owners, maybe your Corvette owners. They're coming in, trading in their old Boxster and Corvettes for this new Supra. But here it is. Why bring back cars from the 90s? With trends right now, nostalgia brings sales. All the 90s TV shows, fashion, movies, they're all making a comeback right now. From Cobra Kai, Rocker's Modern Life, Doc Martens, floral dresses, even scrunchies, Adidas track suits or track pants, they're all coming back. I think the biggest reason they're bringing back these cars is for people like me who grew up in the 90s as a kid, who've seen these cars, who played these cars in video games, who saw them on TV, and always dreamt about owning them. Are you going to buy yourself a used 93 Supra? Or will you go to a dealership right now and buy a new 2021 Supra? We're adults now. We have adult money. We could buy our dream car, but the new version of it. For others, they might have been young adults and couldn't afford the car just quite yet, and it was part of their dream car, and now this is their opportunity to grab it. It's not just the Japanese companies doing this. American car companies are bringing back their cars from the 90s as well. The Bronco, the Gladiator, those are all from the 90s, you guys. Sure, the Mustang and Camaro never really left, so they're still around, but even if you look at their styling, they're starting retro back a little bit. I believe also that Japanese manufacturers understand that they were always known to be dependable, reliable, fuel-efficient cars, and that's not enough anymore. You have your Korean market, you have your American market, your European market, who are making more fuel-efficient cars that's just as dependable and as reliable as Japanese cars are now today, that now these Japanese companies need something to make them stick out. And when did they stick out? The 90s. And that's why the 90s are back. I think especially with Nissan and Toyota, Nissan needs to remind people that they can still make a good car, and Toyota needs to still prove they're cutting edge. SUVs, trucks, and crossovers are about 70% of automotive sales right now, but sports coupes are on the rise. And I predict that they're just going to keep growing. Especially right now with the coronavirus and a lot of people staying at home, that when they get in their cars, they want something exciting. I'm excited to see what else they decide to bring back. I made a video about cars I want to see make a comeback. So if you haven't seen that yet, make sure to check that out. If you could do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and leave me a comment, tell me what cars you want to see come back. And thanks for watching. Peace.
I think so.